Hi, welcome back to the Go Draft. My name's Andy Guerdat. I've been a working writer in Hollywood for 45 years, and I'm sharing with you my ideas and techniques about screen and television writing. And we have been discussing scenes, what scenes are to a screenwriter. And let me refresh you, because a scene to a screenwriter is not the same as it is to most other professionals working in filmmaking. To a screenwriter, a scene is a unit of information that advances the story through dramatic conflict. So we've already talked about the first part of that equation. Let's talk about the second part of it, dramatic conflict. What is dramatic conflict? Okay. Think of it this way. I want you to look out the nearest window at a tree. And if you don't have a window and you don't have a tree, picture one, imagine one. Okay, now let's say my job as a dramatist is to dramatize for you this information. That tree is strong. Okay? Forget why I might want to do that. Let's just say I do. That tree is strong. How do I go about doing that? Okay, well, now I could go online, or I could go to a library, and I could download a lot of facts and statistics that show the tensile strength of an oak tree under certain conditions, and what diameter it has to be the maximum strength. I could go into an analysis of their root system and tell you how deep the roots are on a particular type of tree. I could give you the history of oak trees and how rarely they fall down. I would be communicating to you, left brain to left brain, logician to logician, that this tree is strong. And if your mind works that way, if you have a statistical bent to your mind, it might be effective if I did that. But that's not my job as a screenwriter. My job is to dramatize that tree is strong so that you feel it. So what do? Well, I'm a screenwriter, so as long as I'm sitting in front of my computer, I'm God. So I can do anything I want. I can create anything I want. So I'm going to create a hurricane. I'm going to create gale force winds that start to blow and make that tree sway in the wind, and the branches are starting to sway back and forth, and leaves start flying off of the tree, and bits of bark start flying off of the tree, and the wind blows a little stronger, and the tree starts to bend in the wind, and I could have a trash can come rolling by, and some patio furniture comes blowing past, and the wind picks up even stronger, and now the tree is bending even more, almost a 45-degree angle, and we hear it creaking and groaning, and then I stop the wind, and the tree goes like this. And you say, or rather you feel, oh, that tree is strong. Why? Because I created a dramatic conflict, which was, of course, the wind. Now let's take an example of something that's more likely that you might actually want to dramatize in an actual movie. Let's say we need to dramatize the fact that a woman loves her young son passionately, deeply, powerfully. Okay, remember we talked about defaulting to dialogue, and if your brain immediately goes there, well, what do? I have her say to her son, I really love you, Billy. I really, really, really do love you. And maybe she gives him a hug. Have I done my job? Have I communicated to you, the audience, that she loves her son deeply and passionately? Well, maybe. I mean, I have in fact said it, but I haven't dramatized it. People say I love you all the time, and they don't mean it, as most of us know. So I haven't actually dramatized what I wanted to yet, or certainly not as well as I could. So let's create a scenario where I show the woman walking down a city street with her young son. They seem happy. A friend of hers passes by and says, oh, hi, I haven't seen you in a while. Let's get together. Yeah, sure, let's do that. And she turns back for just a split second, and her son is gone. And she immediately starts to panic, and she screams out his name, and she stops passersby. Have you seen a little boy? He's about this tall. And she starts to cry, and she's looking everywhere. She goes out into the street to see if he went into the street. She almost gets hit by a car and has to jump out of the way, and she's screaming his name. And she pulls out her cell phone, and she dials 911, and she's just about to report him. And she looks over, and she sees her son standing by a toy store window looking at the toys, and she rushes up to him and gives him a hug and says, I love you. Now I have dramatized that woman loves her son. In fact, I wouldn't even need to have her say, I love you. I could just have her run up and give him a deep, passionate hug, and we would know it had been dramatized for us that this woman really, really loves her son. If that was my intention, I have now succeeded. There were other ways to do it, of course, as well, but that would be a way. What did I do? I created a dramatic conflict. What was a dramatic conflict? The boy gets lost briefly. That's how I chose to dramatize that simple fact, that emotional truth. The more powerful the scene is dependent upon how strong the conflict, or to put it more lucidly, the stronger the conflict, the more powerful the scene. Okay, here's some examples of what I mean by that. This is a scene from The Fabulous Baker Boys.
Jack. We just passed the car. Jack. Where the hell you going? You gonna talk to me? Or is this Jack's famous silent act? Oh, look, it was for publicity. You understand?
What are you, a fucking moron? It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Who's watching Paper Boys?
I didn't know when we were gonna be on until yesterday.
Basketballs, Frank.
Okay.
You had us playing for basketballs.
Okay, I'm sorry. I should have checked it out. I screwed up, but that doesn't mean you walk out in the middle of a gig.
What?
It wasn't professional, Jack.
What's happened to you? You've been kissing ass for so long, you're starting to like it? You let that guy turn us into clowns tonight. We were always small time. We were never clowns. What's happened to your dignity?
Dignity? Who the hell are you to talk about dignity? Is this where you get your dignity, Jack, huh? When you get your courage? Now let's do it straight for once. I want to explain something to you, little brother. See, there are people in this world who depend on me. I got a wife and 2 kids who expect to wake up every morning with food on the table and heat in the house. I got a mortgage, I got car payments, and oh yeah, I got you, my little brother Jack, who's so hip, so cool, so fucking sure he's better than everyone else. Don't you think I'd like to walk up to one of these assholes and blow smoke in his face? You're goddamn right I would. But I can't. I have to be responsible, little brother. I have to make sure the numbers balance out in my favor at the end of each month so everyone else can go on living their lives. You don't win medals for it, but you can be damn sure you'd all take notice if I folded up shop. So don't talk to me about dignity, little brother. You're drawing on a weak hand. Oh, terrific. Walk away. You're good at that, Jack. You never could commit to anything, even a conversation.
Was that what that was? That felt like a speech to me. Next time, save it for the PTA.
You just had to do it, didn't you, Jackie? Couldn't keep your cock in your pocket.
Hey. Who I fuck and who I don't fuck is none of your fucking business. You got that?
It is when it affects my business.
Your business?
Yes.
Your business?
Yes.
Your business exists because of me.
You? I make the calendar, I pay the expenses. Christ, I even make sure your shoes are shined. What do? You show up for a couple hours a night and smoke cigarettes.
Frank, if somebody requested chopsticks, you'd ask for the sheet music.
If it wasn't for me, little brother, you'd be playing for dimes out of the back of a truck.
Yeah, you're a real pro, Frank. You're doing such a bang-up job a few months ago, you had them paying us not to play. That's fucking genius. Oh, what are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? Jack! 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 Oh, Jack! Your little brother beat the shit out of you, huh?
My hand! My hand! Jack!
I'm through with it. I can't do it anymore.
That's pretty powerful stuff. That's very powerful dramatic conflict. In this case, it's between 2 characters, 2 brothers, and it can't get much more powerful than that. What is the takeaway? Both of them, but especially the Jeff Bridges character, hates his life, hates everything about it, hates the choices he's made that's brought him here, and he hates his brother, and his brother kind of hates him right back. That's really powerful stuff. And that's the climax of the movie, by the way. Every scene isn't like that. It couldn't possibly be. Here's another example of powerful conflict, different movie. It's called Kramer versus Kramer. It was written and directed by Robert Benson.
All right, come on. Put that down and eat your dinner. It's getting cold.
What is this crap?
It's Salisbury steak.
I hate it.
You not hate it. You had it last week and you loved it.
No, I didn't. Hate the brown stuff. It's gross.
Okay, all that is onions and gravy.
I'm allergic to onions.
You are not allergic to onions. You had this last week, and remember, I told you it was my favorite when I was a little boy, and you said it's my favorite too.
I did not.
Yes, you did. Here, it's regular hamburger. Just give it a little bite. It's delicious. Oh, what's the matter?
I think I'm gonna throw up.
No, you're not. Now you're gonna eat.
Yucky.
It is not yucky, Billy. Eat it.
You remember to bring the chocolate chip ice cream home?
Yes, I did remember to bring the chocolate chip ice cream home, and you're not going to have any of it until you eat all your dinner and then eat your meat and your corn. Where are you going? You get back here right now. Did you hear me? You better not do that. You'd better stop right there, fella. I'm warning you. Hey! Did you hear me? Now you listen to me. Don't be smart now. You go right back and put that back until you finish your dinner. All right, I'm warning you. You take one bite out of that, you're in big trouble. Don't you dare. Don't you dare do that. Did you hear me? Hey, stop, hold it right there. You put that ice cream in your mouth, and you are in very, very, very big trouble. Don't you dare go anywhere beyond that. Put it down right now. I am not going to say it again. I am not going to say it again. I am not. Ow! Don't you kick me. You hurt me. You're no bargaining, pal. You are a spoiled, rotten little brat. And I'll tell you right now,
I hate you.
And I hate you back, you little shit.
I want my money!
Again, very powerful stuff. This is not the climax of the movie. This comes about a third of the way through the movie. I hate you too. That's pretty strong stuff. I was doing writing for a show called Archie Bunker's Place years ago, and Carol O'Connor, who was the star and the showrunner, and there was some argument about whether or not the scene we had written in which the Archie's niece, who he had adopted at that point, says "I hate you" to him because he'd said something about what she couldn't do. And there was an argument probably with a network executive, oh, that's too strong, that's too strong. And I remember Carol saying, and he had raised children, saying, if you're a father and your children haven't said "I hate you" to you at some point, you're not doing your job. It's very powerful language, but it makes the scene very, very powerful as well. It drives home the point of that scene, which is that these two guys, they don't respect each other. The little boy does not respect his father. Here's another scene of tremendous power. It's from a movie called 12 O'Clock High, written by Cy Bartlett and I think his name was Bernie Lay, who takes place in a bomber squadron in World War II. This movie was made, I believe, in 1949, about 4 years after the war. It's a bomber squadron in Britain where these pilots have to fly bombing missions over Germany, and they get shot down and killed quite regularly. And this is a scene in which a new commanding officer has to take over this hard luck squadron, which is not doing its job well. And here's the scene.
That's all, man.
May I ask the General why I've been placed under arrest?
No. Stand at attention. You're the son of Lieutenant General Tom Gately, aren't you?
I believe that's my standard identification, sir.
What do you think of him as an officer?
None better, sir.
That's right. You're the sum of one fine officer and the grandson of another. You're a graduate of West Point with 9 years' service. Your Form 5 shows that you have more four-engine time than any man in the group. For those reasons, you could have done more than anybody to take the load off Colonel Davenport. The record shows that you've flown only 3 missions since you've been here. Is that right?
If you don't count twice I turned back, sir.
I take it that you don't even care about the part you had in breaking one of the best men you'll ever know. Add to it, as air exec, you were automatically in command here the moment Colonel Davenport left. And you met that responsibility exactly as you met his need. You ran out on it. You left the station to get drunk. Gately, as far as I'm concerned, you're yellow. A traitor to yourself, to this group, to the uniform you wear. It would be the easiest course for me to transfer you out. To saddle some unsuspecting guy with a deadbeat. Maybe you think that's what you're going to get out of this, a free ride in some combat unit. But I'm not going to pass the buck. I'm going to keep you right here. I hate a man like you so much that I'm going to get your head down in the mud and trample it. I'm going to make you wish you'd never been born.
If that's all, sir.
I'm just getting started. You're going to stay right here and get a belly full of flying. You're going to make every mission. You're not air exec anymore. You're just an airplane commander. And I want you to paint this name on the nose of your ship. Leper Colony. Because in it, you're going to get every deadbeat in the outfit. Every man with a penchant for head colds. If there's a bombardier who can't hit his plate with his fork, you get him. If there's a navigator who can't find the men's room, you get him because you rate him. Is that clear?
General Savage, I have a right to file charges against you for personal abuse and exceeding your lawful authority, and
Get me Pine Tree. I want General Pritchard.
Line's busy, sir. Will you wait?
Yeah, I'll wait. Right, Gately. You've got a right to explain to General Pritchard cowardice, desertion of your post, a yellow streak a mile wide. And maybe he can explain it to your father so that they'll both be proud of you.
Hello?
You can tell him right now.
Hello? Hello, I have your line, sir. Hello?
General Savage,
Hello?
I withdraw my statement.
Hello? Hello? Hello, I have your line, sir. Hello?
Never mind.
So that's pretty powerful stuff. It's interesting because I've been watching Masters of the Air, and the guy who wrote Masters of the Air should be forced to watch 12 O'Clock High 15 times and then write a report on it, because everything that's wrong with Masters of the Air is right in 12 O'Clock High. It's the exact same subject matter. Obviously, the special effects in 2024 are spectacularly better than they were in 1949. But everything that's wrong with Masters of the Air is in the characters and in the fact that we don't care about the characters. We can barely even differentiate one from another. And the scenes between the characters have very little crackle, very little power, very little conflict. And therefore, we just don't much care. As cool as the flying scenes are, we don't care about the characters. Now, I've just shown you 3 scenes in which characters were yelling at each other or getting yelled at. But dramatic conflict and powerful dramatic conflict does not necessarily mean shouting. I once worked years ago on an hour-long cop-type show. And the showrunner, who was a writer, like most showrunners, and I didn't much care for him and he didn't much care for me. And we had a moment which was not dissimilar from the 12 o'clock high scene we just watched, in which he gave me a bad afternoon, giving notes on the script that my partner and I had turned in. And his point being that the scenes didn't have enough dramatic conflict. Well, he's right. He was right in the sense that all scenes should have dramatic conflict, but he was wrong in this sense. He thought dramatic conflict meant everybody had to be shouting at each other or at least snarling at each other all the time. So the scenes that he wrote and the scenes that he thought were good scenes were always, listen, buddy, I'm a cop, and let me tell you, cops like us are tough. So don't mess with me. Oh, yeah, well, I'm a reporter, and we reporters are tough, too. So don't mess with me because I'm a tough reporter. Oh, really? Well, I'm a doctor, and we doctors are tough. I got to tell you, boy, we don't take any guff from anybody. Oh, really? Well, I'm a high school teacher, and we high school teachers are tough. And on and on and on. Every scene was snarling and shouting, and it was ludicrous. So let me show you some examples of scenes that have tremendous power and a lot of dramatic conflict, but they're very, very different from the scenes I just showed you. And the first one is another scene later in the movie from 12 O'Clock High. Let's just watch it. Well, the basic setup is this: later in the movie, and that the pilot that he yelled at, that the commanding officer yelled at, has in fact been flying every mission and has gotten shot down and has crashed and broke his back, but didn't tell anybody. He flew 3 more missions, and then finally someone found out he's flying with a broken back, and they force him to go into the hospital. And the commanding officer who dressed him down, 30, 40 minutes earlier in the movie, has this scene with him in the hospital.
Well, how are you feeling, Ben?
I'm okay, General.
I was sorry to hear about your bad luck.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I see Doc didn't waste much time. Oh, excuse me, Ben. Well, that's pretty sensitive, huh?
That's okay, General. Go ahead and sit down.
Oh, I'd rather stand. I've been piling up more sitting time than flying time anyway. What kind of a gadget is this? Part of the Wright brothers' first airplane? Looks uncomfortable enough. Help the back any?
Relieves the pressure quite a bit, sir.
How long, Doc say you're going to be laid up?
A few weeks, sir.
Is it pretty painful?
Not much, sir.
I guess you don't feel much like talking.
That's okay, General. Go right ahead.
Ben.
Yes, sir?
I was just going to say, anything you want? Something I can send you?
Not a thing, General. I've got everything I need.
You just let us know if you do need anything.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to drop in across the hall. I'll be seeing you, Ben.
Okay, so what's the dramatic conflict in that scene? Are they yelling at each other? Not even close. And nobody raises a voice. But it's full of dramatic conflict. What is the conflict? The conflict is this. That general, the commanding officer, sent that guy up to die. He sent him up in the worst airplanes with the worst crew, knowing he was probably going to die. And he did it primarily to make an example of him for the other guys. So everybody would be scared of him. Don't mess with me or this is going to happen to you. And he knows he did it. And he feels horrible. He feels tremendous guilt. He would love to say, I'm sorry. I did a terrible thing. Please forgive me. But he can't. He's the commanding officer. He has to at least continue to have the respect of his men. So he can't do that. And the guy in the hospital bed, what does he want? He wants that commanding officer to crawl. He wants him to feel terrible. He's not going to give him an inch of sympathy. He's not going to make him feel better in any way. Yes, sir. No, sir. That's okay, sir. He wants him to feel terrible because deep down he knows the same thing is true. You tried to kill me and I survived. So the scene is redolent with dramatic conflict, but it's all buried underneath, and it's all never shouted. It's there, it's felt, it's played by the actors, it's written properly and by the screenwriters. And by the way, the two screenwriters, I believe, were in fact on bomber crews in World War II, so they really knew what they were talking about. And it's a very powerful scene, but nobody raises a voice. Remember Kramer versus Kramer, the ice cream scene? Here's a scene that comes almost immediately after that scene.
Daddy? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, too. I want you to go to sleep, because it's really late. Hey?
Daddy?
Now, what is it?
Are you going away?
No. I'm staying right here with you. You're not going to get rid of me that easy.
It's where Mommy left, isn't it? Because I was bad.
Is that what you think? No. That's not it, Billy. Your mom loves you very much, and the reason she left doesn't have anything to do with you. I don't know whether this is going to make any sense, but I'll try to explain it to you, okay? I think the reason why Mommy left was because for a long time now I've kept trying to make her be a certain kind of person, Philly. A certain kind of wife that I thought she was supposed to be. And she just wasn't like that. She just wasn't like that. And now that I think about it, I think that she tried for so long to make me happy. And when she couldn't, she tried to talk to me about it, see? But I wasn't listening because I was too busy. I was too wrapped up just thinking about myself. And I thought that any time I was happy, that meant she was happy. But I think underneath, she was very sad. Mommy stayed here longer than she wanted to, I think, because she loves you so much. And the reason why Mommy couldn't stay anymore was because she couldn't stand me, Billy. She didn't leave because of you, she left because of me. Go to sleep now.
Okay, what's the dramatic conflict in that scene? The dramatic conflict is this man who has been blaming his ex-wife for all of his miseries. She left him with this kid. Now finally has to admit, and painful as it is, that he's at fault. It was his fault the wife left him. He's the one who's wrong. Very painful for him to do, and the only way he can do it is at night, in the dark, in a whisper to his little son. And so the scene has an enormous amount of power because we sense how painful it is for him to admit that. Look at the power of dramatic conflict in this scene. This is a scene from the end of a great film called Dr. Zhivago, which was written by Robert Bolt and directed by David Lean. It's an epic love story. And in it, this doctor in the middle of it takes place in and around the Russian Revolution in the years around 1917. And this doctor has met a a married doctor meets a beautiful young woman during the World War I. They fall in love. They have a brief and passionate love affair, and then history and politics tears them apart. They wind up hundreds, if not thousands of miles apart. Years and years go by. They don't see each other, but he passionately loves her and she him, and then this happens.
Thank you. You've been very kind to me.
He must have known how ill he was. The walls of his heart were like paper, but he kept it to himself. He kept a lot to himself.
Please.
Now look at the dramatic conflicts that Bolt and Lean created for that scene to give it the maximum amount of power. What were they? The moving bus. He didn't have to be on a bus. They made that up. They created it. He's on a moving bus. He sees her out the window. He pounds on the window. She can't hear him. What else was there? It was a crowded bus. Was it an empty bus? No, that would have made him fairly easy for him to get out and yell her name, at least before he dies. And then finally, of course, he has a bad heart. So he's trying to run after her, has a heart attack, and dies. The power of the scene is because they put so many obstacles between these two lovers to give it as much dramatic power as possible. That's why we tell love stories about lovers who are separated by miles and years, and that we don't, as the most powerful obstacles possible. We don't tell love stories about two people who are separated because one of them went shopping for the afternoon. The audience, and this is the real takeaway, the audience wants to see your characters go through hell, so they don't have to. And if your audience is going through hell, and many of them are when they see your work, they feel better because they have company. They do not want to see you take it easy on your characters. So this happens very often. You fall in love with your protagonist, usually. For a writer, a protagonist is often someone who is very similar to the writer that the writer identifies with most. You fall in love with that character, and you don't want to make it life difficult for them. You want to take it easy on them. You must resist that impulse, and always, if you have a choice, and you often do have, you're going to have choices all through your screenwriting experience. You're going to choose what direction the story goes. When it is a choice, don't take the easy path for your characters. Increase the dramatic conflict. Okay, now let's talk about how to make scenes visual without resorting to dialogue all the time, which I keep harping on. There's a way to do it. And one of the best ways to think about it is sort of a parable that was told to me early in my career. It was attributed at the time to Gary Marshall. I worked for Gary Marshall on Mork and Mindy for a while. He never said this in my presence, but it was attributed to him. Maybe it's true. I don't know. Anyway, here's how it goes. Picture a room with no doors and no windows, no furniture, nothing in it at all, but there's two guys trapped inside, and their goal is to get out. Write the scene. Well, what would you write? They could say to each other, gee, I really want to get out of here. Yeah, I really want to get out of here too. And they could pound on the wall maybe a little bit. And after that, what do you got? What would you write about? Now give them an axe. Now they want to get out of the room. Now they can use the axe to try to get out of the room and flail away at the wall and show how exhausting it is to try to do it and how badly they want to get out. And one guy could take it. No, you're not doing it right. I used to be a Boy Scout. Let me show you how to do it. And they could fight over the axe. They could break the axe handle and then cry, oh my God, that's the only way we have to get out. Now you have something around which to write the scene. You have an axe. And so that term axe was used then, I don't know if people still use it, but I do, to mean that device that allows you to show what the scene is about instead of just talking about what the scene's about. And that could be a prop, it could be a person, it could be a place. It's whatever device helps you to show what the scene's about. Another way to think of it is the axe is like a fulcrum, right? Like a fulcrum on a teeter-totter, right? Like a triangle, and a teeter-totter goes back and forth on it. If you take that away, you don't have a teeter-totter, you just have a piece of wood laying flat on the ground with nothing to allow it to work as a scene. And if you put the fulcrum under it, now the board goes up and down, back and forth, and you have the back and forth that makes the scene. Let's look at some examples. Here's an example. It's a movie. Here's the story and here's the situation. A basketball coach has been busted from the big time, probably for getting too violent with a player or something. We're never quite sure why. But he's been busted down to coaching a small town high school team. That's the only job he can get anymore. And this town can barely scratch together enough players to even make a team. And the best player in town won't play, and nobody knows why. So I need a scene in which this high school coach, who's my protagonist, has to say or do something to make this player think, maybe I'll play on the team. I don't want a scene that makes him say, by golly, I am going to play on the team. That comes later in the story. I just need a scene that makes us think, oh, he's starting to think, maybe, because of something this coach said or did. Here's how Angelo Pizzo did it in the movie Hoosiers.
Jimmy, I didn't see you in class today. Any reason you want to tell me about it? You know, in the 10 years that I coached, I never met anybody who wanted to win as badly as I did. I'd do anything I had to do to increase my advantage. Anybody who tried to block the pursuit of that advantage, I just push them out of the way. Didn't matter who they were or what they were doing. But that was then. You had a special talent, a gift. Not the schools, not the townspeople, not the teams, not Myra Fleener's, not mine. It's yours to do with what you choose. Because that's what I believe. I can tell you this. I don't care if you play on the team or not.
He missed the shot. He misses the last shot. He hits every shot in a row until, I don't care if you play on the team or not, and he misses the shot, which tells us visually, oh, what that coach just said sunk in. Now, imagine if you had to write the same scene, communicate the same information, but you take away the basketball and the hoop. Those are the axes of the scene, obviously. Take them away. Now try to write the scene. What would it be? Two guys stand around in a field talking, and he says the same thing, and the kid says, gosh, maybe you're right. I don't know. I don't have to go home and think about that, coach. Well, yeah, I guess that would sort of do it, but certainly nowhere near as effectively. And because the screenwriter wrote the scene correctly, this great actor, Gene Hackman, could give his best performance. And this young actor who was not an actor, he was a local basketball player, didn't have to act. In fact, he even said later, I wasn't even listening to what Gene Hackman said. I was just concentrating on hitting those shots over and over and over again. It didn't matter. The basketball and the hoop did the acting for him. Here's another example. This is from a thriller called Day of the Jackal. And in this scene, there's a young, beautiful young woman who's has to be convinced to seduce a government official on behalf of this terrorist organization, which is trying to assassinate the president of France. So I need a short scene. She's not a major character, but she has an important role to play in the story because she's going to get information from this government official after she's seduced him. So I need a scene that shows that she's agreeing to do this. Here's how the screenwriter Kenneth Ross chose to execute it.
Denise, I ask you to get rid of these. It's for your own safety.
I'll do it tonight.
Maybe I should do it for you now, huh? They know all about your fiancé. I have an assignment for you that sounds very important. It's not very pleasant.
Go on.
They want you to get involved with an official of the Élysée Palace. Someone fairly close to the goal. It might be dangerous. It's certainly distasteful.
Who is this official?
I'll show him to you in a week or so.
Okay, what are the axes of the scene? Obviously, the picture of her lover and the love letters and the fire. That allows the character to see her past going up in flames, her lover's destroyed, presumably he's either dead or in prison, and she has nothing left to live for, and so she agrees. And it allowed this actress, I don't even know who she was, to give a very nice little performance in this because the screenwriter had done his work for her. He had provided the actor and the directors with the tools required to communicate this information without having to resort to a lot of dialogue. And it was done very effectively. Now here's another scene from another thriller. Here's the scene where I've got two ex-spies, retired spies who've lost their jobs, and they've been hired to do this covert assignment to steal something, we're not even sure quite what, from this mysterious terrorist organization. And they don't know each other, they don't trust each other, one's a man, one's a woman, but I need a scene, because it's going to pay off later, I need a scene that shows here that they're starting to feel something romantic for each other. Remember, two tough spies, they don't trust each other, they don't trust anybody very much. And yet I need to show they have starting to have feelings for each other, and I need to do it economically. Here's how David Mamet did it, writing under a pseudonym in the movie Ronin.
So how'd you get started in this business?
A wealthy scoundrel seduced and betrayed me.
Same with me. How about that? Take out the map. Take out the map. Everybody looks.
So who are those guys inside?
You tell me.
Ex-military, Northern Soul Block, somebody or other. I need a job. That's my excuse.
Is it?
Cops.
Obviously, the acts of the scene is the car they're sitting in and the cop car driving by, or the cars driving by, including a cop car, which forces them close together, which allows us to get to that place where we have to get, and then that very interesting moment when she then sits on his lap, obviously having enjoyed the experience. Here's another example, again from this movie 12 O'Clock High, which I keep referring to because it's so well written. And here's a scene in which that commanding officer, who we saw earlier, is about to take over this hard luck bomber squadron. And I need a scene, the story needs a scene, that shows he knows he's going to have to be tough and by the book and even cruel. But he's actually really kind of a regular guy. He's a nice guy. But he doesn't want to do this, but he knows he has to get the job done. And here's the scene that the screenwriters chose to make that point.
Smoke, Ernie?
Thank you, sir.
All right, Sergeant.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what's the acts of the scene? The staff car he's riding in and the cigarette. They pull over to the side of the road. He gets out. He gets out of the front seat of the car. He turns back to the non-commissioned officer who's driving him and says, "Smoke, Eddie," and then offers him a cigarette and lights it for him. Then he takes a couple of puffs on his cigarette, looks out into the distance, steals his nerves, goes around the car to the other side and says, "Okay, Sergeant." And the sergeant gets out and opens the back door, and he gets in, closes the door, and drives off onto the base. They just showed you what that's complicated piece of information. I know I have to be tough, but I'm a regular guy. They just showed it to you by using an axe and 4 words. Smoke, Eddie, okay, Sergeant. That's incredibly elegant, streamlined, economical screenwriting. That's screenwriting. I'm going to show you one more. And this is a very complex scene from a great film, one of the greatest screenplays ever written. It's called The Apartment, written by Billy Wilder and I.A.L. Diamond, two of the greatest screenwriters in history. And in this scene, here's the situation. A young executive in a big corporation is very ambitious, and he's fallen in love with a cute young elevator operator, back when they used to have elevator operators. And in the meantime, because he's so ambitious, he's giving his apartment away for the night to other executives, higher ups, so that they can have affairs with their mistresses in his apartment. They don't have to go to a hotel. And so in return, they've been promoting him upwards, right? So he thinks everything's going great. And in a few scenes earlier, we saw that one of the executives who's using his apartment is the big boss. And the big boss, and in one scene earlier, the young guy has shown him a compact, a little compact like a women carry or used to anyway, and that he found in the apartment, and the mirror was cracked, and the big boss said, "Oh yeah, she got mad at me because she's taking it so seriously, women." And then they have this kind of bro moment, right? Ha ha, isn't that funny? But we've seen the cracked mirror, and here's the scene in which this young man finds out the truth about what he's been doing.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. I thought you were avoiding me.
What gave you that idea?
In the last 6 weeks, you've only been in my elevator once, and you didn't take off your hat.
Well, as a matter of fact, I was rather hurt that night you stood me up.
I don't blame you. It was unforgivable.
I forgive you.
Well, you shouldn't.
You couldn't help yourself. I mean, when you're having a drink with one man, you can't suddenly walk out on him because you're having another date with another man. You did the only decent thing.
I wouldn't be too sure. Just because I wear a uniform, that doesn't make me a Girl Scout.
Miss Kubelik, one doesn't get to be a second administrative assistant around here unless he's a pretty good judge of character. And as far as I'm concerned, you're tops. I mean, decency-wise and otherwise-wise. Cheers. One more.
Oh, I shouldn't drink while I'm driving.
You're so right. By the power vested in me, I herewith declare this elevator out of order. Shall we join the natives?
Why not? They seem friendly enough.
Don't you believe it? After a while, there'll be human sacrifices. White-collar workers tossed into the computing machines and punched through those little square holes.
How many drinks did you have?
3.
I thought so.
Wait a minute. I think I hear the sound of running water. I'll be right back.
I'll be right here. Hi. As the branch manager from Kansas City. I beg your pardon? I'm Miss Olson, Mr. Sheldrake's secretary. So you don't have to play innocent with me. He used to tell his wife I was the branch manager from Seattle. 4 years ago, when we were having a little ring-a-ding-ding. Oh, I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about. Just before me, there was Miss Rossi in auditing, and after me, there was Miss Koch in disability, and right before you was a Miss, what's her name? On the 25th floor. Would you excuse me? What for? You haven't done anything. It's him. Oh, what a salesman. Always the last booth in the Chinese restaurant, and the same pitch about divorcing his wife. And in the end, you wind up with egg foo young on your face. Well, thank you, Miss Olson. Always happy to do a little something for our girls in uniform.
You all right? What's the matter?
Nothing. There are just too many people here.
Why don't we step into my office? There's something I want your opinion about, anyhow. I have my own office now, naturally. You may be interested to know that I am the second youngest executive in this company. The only one younger is a grandson of the chairman of the board. Would you mind? Miss Kubelik, I would like your honest opinion. I've had this under my desk for a week. It cost me $15. I haven't been able to get up enough nerve to wear it. It's what they call the junior executive model. What do you think? Like I say, Mayor Bobo, huh?
I like it.
Really? And you wouldn't be ashamed to be seen with somebody in a hat like this?
Of course not.
Maybe if I wore it a little more to one side. How's that? Is that better?
Much better.
Well, since you wouldn't be ashamed to be seen with me, how about the three of us going out tonight? You, me, and the bowler. Then we'll stroll down Fifth Avenue, sort of break it in.
This is a bad day for me.
Oh, I understand. Christmas family and all that.
I'd better get back to my elevator. I don't want to be fined.
You don't have to worry about that. I've got quite a bit of influence and personnel. You know Mr. Sheldrake?
Why?
Well, he and I are like that. He sent me a Christmas card. See?
Makes a cute picture.
I thought maybe I'd put in a word for you with Mr. Sheldrake, get you a little promotion. How would you like to be an elevator starter?
I'm afraid there are too many girls around here with seniority over me.
No problem. Why don't we discuss it sometime over the holidays? I can call you and pick you up. We have a big unveiling. Are you sure this is the right way to wear this?
You think so? Here.
You don't think it's tilted a little too much? I mean, after all, this is a conservative firm. I don't want people to think I'm an entertainer.
What's the matter?
The mirror, it's broken.
Yes, I know. I like it that way. Makes me look the way I feel. Your phone.
Yes? Just a minute.
Okay, now I want you to count the axes in that very complex scene. A lot of story is told in that scene. It's a huge scene. It's the midpoint scene, in fact. Let's count them together. Okay, there's the hat, that goofy bowler hat that he bought, which represents his pretension and his pride and his ambition, right? We have the Christmas card, right? Christmas card from the big boss who sort of is looming over both of these two young people and messing up their lives. And of course, we have the broken mirror. And the second he opens it and sees the broken mirror, he and the audience realize, oh my God, you are pimping out your apartment to the woman, so that the woman you love can be exploited by the big boss. What in the world have I done? There's more. There's the office party, right? Did they set it on an average day? No, they decided to put it in the Christmas office party. Why? Because everybody else seems to be having a great time except them. So it points up the misery of these two people who've gotten themselves into this mess, while everybody else seems to be having fun. And of course, the little paper cups of booze, which represents that artificial fun. You have also the secretary. An axe doesn't have to just be a prop. It can be a person. And the drunken secretary who delivers the news to this young woman that she's not the first and she's not the only. And you have a person, you have a place, and you have props that are all being used as axes to tell this complicated story. Now I want you to look at something else. Go back and look at it again if you want to, and look at the performances of the actors. Because they're very subtle. Yes, it's a comedy, and they're to some degree over the top a bit, I suppose. But they're very, very subtle with the powerful emotions that they're needing to express, to reveal. Very subtle. Why are they so subtle? Look at Shirley MacLaine, young Shirley MacLaine. She barely, in many of the scenes, shots, barely moves a muscle, but you can just see the hint of the pain in her eyes, and maybe the hint of even a tear behind the agony that she's feeling. She's allowed to be that subtle, and Jack Lemmon is allowed to be that subtle when he finally opens the mirror and realizes what he's done, and he looks at her with that look of, my God, how did I let this happen? Very subtle, doesn't need a line of dialogue. The subtlety of the performances is because the screenwriters did their job. The screenwriters set it up so the actors did not have to show what was happening in the story. They simply have to reflect what is happening in the story. So if you find yourself having written a scene saying, well, if the actor says this right, it'll probably be clear, you need to stop. Your job is to show what's happening. Their job is to reflect what's happening. Here's the other reason to write visually, cinematically, instead of relying on your actors, and that is, when you're writing, if you're like me, like everybody, you're probably picturing some wonderful actor who you like, actors in the parts, and you're not going to get them. I mean, the chances of you getting Leonardo DiCaprio and Emma Stone or whoever it is you're imagining are very, very small. You're going to get Leonardo, Murphy, and Jessica Stone, right? You're going to get, if you're lucky, pretty good actors. And if you're not lucky, you may get bad actors. So your scenes need to work even if you don't have the best cast, because most of the time you don't have the best cast or the best director. They may be good, they may not be good. You want it to work anyway. You want your story to at least hang together and to be comprehensible and hopefully even enjoyable to an audience, even if you don't get the greatest cast ever. As I mentioned, the kid and the basketball player in the scene from Hoosiers wasn't an actor at all, and I believe he went into construction or something soon afterwards. He didn't have much interest in it. When you write visually, when you write cinematically, when you write the way a screenwriter is supposed to write, what happens is you free the actors up to do what they're supposed to be doing. And what they're not supposed to be doing is trying to figure out, what is this scene about? How does this move the story? What are we doing here? You don't want that to happen when they walk onto the soundstage or on the location. It should be obvious by the way the scene is written. That's not what they're supposed to be doing. What they're supposed to be doing is trying to figure out, how is the best way for me to play this? How should I say the line? Should I have my voice break a little bit on this word, or should I put a pause here? Should I put a pause there? How should I raise my eyebrow here? Should I turn away here? Should I sit down here? Should I stand up there? Whatever. That's what they're supposed to be thinking about. That's plenty. That's a lot for them to be doing. Likewise, when you write the scene correctly, you free up the director to do what he or she is supposed to be doing, which is, where do I put the camera? How should I block the actors? How should I light the scene? Do you remember the scene from 12 O'Clock High I showed you earlier, where the commanding officer is reaming out the airplane pilot who's fallen down on the job? Do you remember how the scene was blocked? The officer under arrest is standing up, and the commanding officer is sitting down, right? Then he starts to talk to him, and then he gets up and he moves around to the front of the desk, but he sits on the desk so that the guy is still taller than he is. And then finally, when he lowers the boom on him, what happens? He stands up and he's now taller than the guy he's been dressing down. So in order to emphasize the fact that I have the power here, you're going to be nothing. That's part of blocking a scene. If the director doesn't have to try to figure out on the set, what in the world is this scene about and how in the world am I supposed to communicate it? It's already been done for him. Now he can start to, or she can focus on, how is the best way to move the actors? When should he sit up? When should he stand down? How should I move them forward, backwards, all that stuff, which is, again, plenty for a director to worry about. They've got enormously complex jobs, very difficult jobs. If they're trying to figure out what the scene is about, they cannot do that. That is your job. Our job is to do the heavy lifting. Our job is to get the story down in a way that's clear and can be communicated. And then their job is to find the best way to do that. We'll get into that more in a bit. The distinction between the director's responsibilities and the screenwriter's responsibilities. If you find you've overwritten a scene, that is to say, if you've used too many axes, or the axe is too on the nose, or for some reason they decide not to use it, which is certainly possible, that's okay, because at least you've given them the starting point, and they can decide, you know what, I think the actor can do this with a look, or I think we can just do this with the blocking. We don't need so many bells and whistles. That's okay. They can get rid of them, but you at least have given or reduced their importance. But at least you've given them a good starting point, and they can pull this off. At least you've given them the tools to do it. What's hard is when actors and directors, as I described, walk onto a set and don't have anything to work with. They just have some vague dialogue that isn't particularly right, or there's nothing. Where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? What am I playing here? Am I supposed to sit, stand? What are we doing? And they're trying to figure it out on the fly. And when you do that, nothing good comes from it. It almost always is terrible. My wife and I were watching the movie Napoleon just recently, and the battle scenes are, as you would expect, spectacular, but the scenes with the actors are wretched, in my humble opinion. I mean, Joaquin Phoenix is a very good actor who's never been worse, and I think the obvious reason was maybe the script was there and it got trashed by studio executives and directors and egos or something, or maybe there never was a very good script. I don't know. I wasn't there. But I know that the scenes smelled of actors trying to create drama where there wasn't any, trying to make up a scene where there isn't a proper scene, and the acting is hammy and over the top and ridiculous, and one scene doesn't track logically into the next. You have no idea what the actors are playing half the time. It's a mess in terms of that. The character scenes, at least, the battle scenes are something else. Do not leave storytelling to the actors. Do not do it. Trust me on this. Years ago, I had a TV movie made, and it was made coincidentally during a major writer's strike, which meant that they couldn't rewrite the script. They had to shoot it as written. I was not allowed to rewrite it, and they couldn't hire anybody else to rewrite it. They had to shoot it the way it was written. And by and large, it was quite good. It was a very successful TV movie, as it turned out. But there was one scene, and I wasn't on the set at the time. There was one scene that I was told, the producer said, the actors and the director couldn't make this particular scene work, so they improvised something. And these were young actors and a director who wasn't exactly a genius. And what they improvised in this particular case was it was a high school story. And it was a scene in which the popular girl wounds up with the nerdy kid in class. And she, for the first time, starts to realize, he's kind of cute in his own way. And I don't remember what my partner and I had written, but I think it was probably pretty good. But for whatever reason, I don't know why, the actor didn't like a line, couldn't do it, something. So they improvised the lamest scene possible, which was her saying to him, take off your glasses, and he takes off his glasses, and then she says, oh, wow, you really are cute. And it was really terrible. It's a horrible cliche. No professional writer would ever have written it. But two young actors who don't have any particular skills at improv, that's what they came up with. It's the only scene in the movie that just sort of sticks out like, what the heck was that about? You do not want actors making up stuff. It's a whole other conversation, which I can go into in another time, about improv and when it works and when it does not work and why it does not work. But your job is to tell the story, not to leave that up to the actors or the director, for that matter. If you think visually, as we've been discussing, you can even dramatize human thought, which seems almost impossible. Literature has it all over cinema in terms of showing what a character is thinking, because obviously an author can go into a description of the thoughts of their character, where we can't do that. We can do a voiceover, but that's usually pretty lame. It's hard, but it's not impossible, and it can be done quite effectively. I'll show you some examples. Here's the Coen brothers in Barton Fink. And here they're trying to dramatize one of the hardest things you could possibly pick to dramatize, and that is writer's block. Barton Fink is a screenwriter who has writer's block and can't think of anything to write. And the only thing duller than watching a writer write on camera is watching a writer who can't write on camera. And yet the Coens came up with a clever way to dramatize what it feels like to have writer's block. And here's the scene. What's the axe of the scene? The wallpaper. The wallpaper and the heat is peeling off the walls, and literally the walls seem to be closing in on this poor guy who can't write. And there was another act too. If you haven't seen the movie, it may have been hard to pick up, but it's a running joke, which is there's a mosquito in his room. And he never can find it. And that sound of the mosquito at the end of the scene is that annoying little voice essentially inside his head saying, "You can't write." It's pretty effectively done. Here's another example. This is from a movie called Broadcast News, written and directed by James Brooks. And this is a scene in which two of the three main characters he needed a scene that showed they are bonding in a big time way, intimately bonding, even though they didn't intend to. And he plays William Hurt is playing a good-looking but pretty vacuous news anchor, and Holly Hunt is playing has a very powerhouse, smart, no-nonsense news producer. And here's a scene, but we needed to show that they're starting to bond in a very intimate way. And here's the scene.
In the summer of 1981, 2 Libyan jets suddenly attacked 2 American F-14s flying a routine training mission over the Gulf of Sidra.
Today they got
Gaddafi claimed then, as he does now, that the Gulf is part of Libya's territorial waters, a view not shared by other nations, including the U.S. After a brief dogfight, both Libyan jets were down by the American fighters.
The name is Nathan Benchley.
Nathan Benchley is at the Pentagon. So,
that's great.
Commander, it must have been a bit tougher today, shooting down the MiG-21. The one you got was an Su-22.
What's it like at the moment of confrontation?
What's it like to be in a real dogfight?
Okay, after this guy, we'll go for a wrap-up. You'll have about 10 seconds. Ask him, how does he know when he has a hit?
Do you know you have a hit from one of those screens inside your cockpit, or can you actually see your missile strike the other plane with your eye?
That's good.
The equipment is very sophisticated, but
what's the axe? The earpiece, the microphone she's talking into, the earpiece he's hearing her in, and obviously the control panel. And when she fingers the control panel, it's pretty sexual. And it shows how intimate they are suddenly becoming. Here's one last example of communicating thought. This is an extraordinary scene. Only Alfred Hitchcock could have pulled it off. It's going to be a scene in which this guy has been hired to follow a guy's wife to see what she's up to, and he goes to a restaurant where he sees her for the first time. And the point of the scene is that by the end of this scene, he becomes infatuated with her, at the very least, dazzled by her. And here's how Hitchcock and the screenwriters, Alec Capel and Samuel Taylor, pulled it off. In this case, Hitchcock is taking a big chance, but he pulled it off. The axe of the scene is simply the proximity. The woman gets closer and closer and closer, and the closer she is, the more beautiful she is, until she's right behind him, and he has to look away and she stands there, and then she walks on, and he turns and looks at her, and by the end of it, you know, she's got him. He's completely infatuated, if not in love, and not one word is spoken. It's a pretty amazing example of what you can do visually if you're skilled enough, if you're gifted enough, and certainly Hitchcock was. Those are some examples of how to use axes, how to tell how to attack a scene visually instead of through dialogue. Obviously, there are plenty of examples, and I've already shown you some of scenes that have pretty much are only dialogue. And there are occasions when you don't want an axe, by the way. It doesn't always, every scene doesn't have to have one. There are times when the greatest of screenwriters decides this is a scene that just needs to be dialogue. I don't want anything else in it. But those are few and far between, and they should be done consciously. First, you should attack the scene visually. They're almost always, except for the rare scenes. For example, the Fabulous Baker Boys scene I showed you really doesn't have an axe. It's pretty much all dialogue. But that was rare, and most of the scenes do have an axe, and should have an axe, or more than one, in order to make your screenplay work to its maximum capability. Okay, we're going to move on to more stuff about scenes and about how working with writing for actors and all that kind of stuff, writing dialogue, all kinds of more stuff to talk about in upcoming episodes, which will come up soon, I hope. Next.